Marx argues that the root of alienation in a capitalist society is alienation from the product of one's labor. What does this mean? It means that for the vast majority of people, that is, for the laborers, what they produce is not their own. They work to produce things that belong to someone else. Now, why would that be the case? At first glance, you'd say, well, no, they work to get a wage. They work for money. But Marx says, no, it's not quite like that. Right? We need to look deeper here. Right? We need to look at the deeper underlying structures. And to do that, I want to go back for a moment to Locke. Right? When I think about this aspect of Marx, I tend to think of it as a criticism of Locke, right? Whether or not that's actually who he was aiming at. So remember Locke's idea. He said, okay, well, you want to eat. Well, what do? Well, you go out there into the forest and you pick some apples, right? And you put them together, and because you've mixed your labor with the product, it now becomes yours, right? And you have the right to control it, to consume it, to give it away, to trade it, etc. Right? But at the end, or you might figure out how to weave baskets out of reeds. So you go out and pick the reeds, right, from out in the wild and weave them into a basket, and that's yours to use or sell. Right? So the product of your labor belongs to you. It becomes your property. However, right, what Marx says is, well, that's nice in theory, but in his words, we proceed from an actual economic fact. And what is that actual economic fact? That actual economic fact is that there's no unclaimed land or raw materials out there. Right? Moreover, in our economy, to really compete and to really succeed economically, you're probably going to have access to sophisticated tools, extremely expensive tools that the laborers cannot afford. So in effect, what happens? Well, remember, if you've got the potter, right, with his own wheel and his own clay, when he makes a pot, it becomes his. Right? So let's say he takes $1 worth of clay, right, and uses his own wheel to turn it into a $10 pot. Well, what's happened? Well, he's taken what was $1 of material that belonged to him and turned it into a $10 product. So in a sense, he's gained by this, right? Because he owns the product of his labor. If he wants to, he can sell it for 10 or he can use it. Right? So whatever increase there is in use or in monetary value belongs to him. But what happens to the laborer in a factory? Well, he goes in at the beginning of the day and together, well, he doesn't make one pot, right? Together with the other laborers, let's say there's 1,000 of them, right? They make 10,000 pots. So if they had $10,000 worth of clay and they turn it into $100,000 worth of pots, right? Well, who's gained? The owner of the factory, right? His property has increased by $90,000 in value, right? The factory owner now owns the product of their labor, not the factory workers. What do the factory workers get? They get their wage, okay? So they work hard all day to take someone else's material using someone else's tools in order to produce products for that other person. What does that mean? Well, it means what's happened is their labor has become alienated. Instead of their labor being something that they use to produce things for themselves, it's something they sell to someone else to use to produce something for those other people. So that's alienation from the product of your labor. Right? Your labor is no longer used to turn your goods into something more valuable, but it's used to turn someone else's goods into something that belongs to them, not you.